point. So what do you see as that responsibility? Because what we've got here is a group of professionals, and then we've got basically what is and what can be. And this is the bridge here of what is and what can be.
Well, this is where we need the Tucker development, folks. I mean, he is a great American, and that team is a great Americans because they're seeing opportunity instead of problems. They're seeing possibilities. And then they're willing to do the difficult work. They're willing to risk capital. They're willing to try to energize neighborhoods through their efforts. So this country was really built on visionary people who were engaged in business and innovation, who were engaged in social activism, people who were literally the definition of insanity. One of the definitions of insanity is seeing things that just aren't there. And that's, to me, what a group like this can really get done. So many people talk about change, but to be a person that really steps out, risks the capital, makes the investment, puts together the plan, and actually puts the steel in the ground, that to me is transformative. And the impact that Tucker and others in Newark are having, and you can see this institution, people said it should not have been built, but somebody had the wisdom to pull together the resources to construct an institution like this that is the leader in the state of New Jersey for educating those children in classrooms, for arts education. So it can be done. So I'm not a developer. My parents used to say as I went through and got different degrees, and my dad would say I have more degrees in the month of July, but I need to go out and get a job. Then I became a politician, and my dad still is asking me to get a job. But the people in this room are the people that actually make it happen, that provide the jobs, that provide the economic dynamism, that provide the realities that we aspire to create. And in Newark, we're going to be a part of, and I hope people in this room will be even more of a part of. In the next 5 years, and I really rarely do I use this word as a politician because so many of them are broken, but I really promise you that if we do the necessary things over the next 5 years, the nation will be talking about Newark, New Jersey, and what's happening as we are the model for urban transformation. I was sitting with Good Morning America yesterday. I mean, the national media folks are already coming in because Newark is setting the national standard. We're the #1 city, not Austin, not Boston, not LA, not New York. We're the #1 city in America in violent crime reduction, over 40% down in murders, over 40% down in shootings. We're setting the standard. In so many areas, Newark is now breaking out from other cities and showing what can be done. And what excites me is we're going to make America abundant, rich, and wild right here in the city of Newark. This will become a model for where our country needs to go.
Well, in a way, you're an ambassador to the other cities across the country. So you're now in your 3rd year of service, one might say.
Yes.
And what kind of counsel and advice could you give to other mayors in this state and across the country that would help them, propel them in that way? What kind of counsel from the things that haven't gone right and things that have gone wrong?
Well, first of all, and this is not, forgive me if it sounds like a false modesty, but the reality is there's an interesting thing happening in our country right now on the mayoral level that is so exciting. When I won in my mayor's seat, I got calls from both sides of the political aisle, everybody from Condoleezza Rice to just about every presidential candidate on both sides, all with wonderful, niceties. But what excited me was other mayors in America that called me up. You had Rendell calling me up and saying, yeah, kid, congratulations. Now get down here, bring your team down here to meet with me. Let me show you how I saved 10% from my budget in the first 6 months. Bloomberg calling me up and say, Cory, get your team over here and let's learn from each other. The mayors are on the front lines of innovation in America right now, and I learn so much from each other, and we exchange ideas. And so the lessons and the hardships that we learn, first of all, we all recognize we're all fighting in the same trench. And what we try to share with each other is not just larger ideology, but also very pragmatic plans. So when I talk to other mayors around the country, especially newly elected ones, it's just more of a come talk to me, visit Newark, see what's happening here. Like we did, we went down to Baltimore and saw their performance management systems and said, those are great. We not only want to institute them, but we want to replicate and make them better. We're launching today our 311 call center to end the madness in Newark that if you call City Hall, you have to call 10 different places before you figure out what's going on. Have one number that you can call to get the information. More importantly, you can track your complaint or your criticism or what have you and see how it's getting addressed in real time on the computer. This is where American governments are going, and I'd like to say that I'm the great inventor of the ideas, but the good thing that we're doing here in Newark is seeing what the best practices are, incubating them more here, and innovating upon them.
That's fantastic. So this leads me to the next question, because I've seen you in several interviews, and this actually is part of that bridging that gap. You've talked about the spiritual crisis in American cities. This is something that you fully are invested in and fully are passionate about.
Right.
What is that spiritual crisis?
Well, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, and I think that we as Americans, it's not just a spiritual crisis in cities, it's America's spiritual crisis, and it's an always there crisis because we always have a choice to make as a nation. And I always say the poverty in America that we should be concerned with is not a financial or material poverty. It's a poverty of imagination. It's a poverty of compassion and love. It's a poverty of action. And we have to understand that there's so many challenges our nation. We have actually defined making a way out of no way. The history of this country is a perpetual testimony to the achievement of the impossible. And anybody who looks at our problems and thinks that they are bigger than we are does not deserve to be called an American. And so the challenge for us is to say we can do whatever we want to do if we're willing to focus our attention, unify our efforts, and make the necessary sacrifices. If we drink so deeply from wells that we did not dig, we luxuriate in the sacrifice of others in the country we live in right now, will we now take on our greatest problems and our greatest hurdles and leave for the next generation a legacy of sacrifice, of service, and of success? So to me, it's always waking people up. I love doing what people say is impossible. From even the office I hold, where people told me there's no way you could upset the political machine in the city of Newark and win, to even some of the accomplishments we're making already in crime fighting and other areas. And the building I sit in is an impossible dream. I'm going to start singing "Dream the Impossible Dream." But this is face the impossible foe. But this is really what we're about as a country. So I challenge people to do a little bit more, to try a little bit harder, to go the extra effort. What's killing us right now is apathy. People think America is a spectator sport where they can sit back comfortably with their remote control in hand and give color commentary about who's up or who's down. This is a participatory democracy. We need to strap on our chin straps, tighten up our laces, and get in the game. And if we think we can change our problems by doing the same things we all did last year, we're wrong. We have to do a little bit more and dedicate ourselves to the American cause.
How do you do this every day? How do you propel yourself every day?
You know, I started something last month. I started blogging. I figure I need to finally start jumping into
Do you have enough time for that?
Yes, exactly. So, so now that I'm recapping every day at the end of my days, yesterday was one of those days where I was brutally tired and dragged myself to the last meeting, dragged myself literally. And then it was the worst because I walked into a small storefront in the Central Ward of Newark, no air conditioning, packed with people who were fanning themselves. And I got up there, already my shirt was drenched. By the time I finished, my suit was drenched, talking to a group of Newarkers who believed in me. Most of the people in that room were people that did the irrational things supporting me about 10 years ago, who many of them lost jobs because of the retaliations that went against them. But there's a room of people still believing in Newark. And we were there to do two things: recount the progress we made. We just issued a 25 accomplishments in 25 months document to let people know really what's happening and the changes we're making. But then also to talk about the future and the need, especially in this upcoming election, for them to be involved. And I thought I was there to inspire them. And dripping with sweat as I patted myself down, answering questions. And people stood up one after the other, not to complain, not to talk about I need a job or I need this. This is salt of the earth, amazing human beings who wanted to stand up and talk to me about what else they can do to push this movement forward. They feel that their faith is being rewarded. And these are the heroic hopes and the audacious actions and the daring dreamers that really inspire me and sustain me in the city of Newark. There's so many great Americans that we'll never hear about or read about in newspapers or on TV, but they're really the ones in the grassroots making the sacrifice. And this is the challenge for us as professionals or politicians or whomever we are, is to join the majority of Americans that are doing things to sustain cities like this through bad times, but now, as the wave is growing and we're riding a powerful wave, to ride this wave into victory.